getting jazzed for Christmas, that's all.
It sounds
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, December 16th meeting of the Lincoln City Council. And I just want to remind everyone that we have a copy of the Open Meetings Act posted at the rear of the hearing room. And Mr. Christensen?
I would like to acknowledge that today is the 75th anniversary of the commencement of the Battle of the Bulge, and our moment of silence, I ask you to remember those who sacrificed and served.
Thank you. And so I'd like us all to rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent meditation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The order of the business of the City Council is as follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads that item. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating name, address, and whether you are speaking in favor of or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last meeting of the month, immediately prior to adjournment, anyone may speak on an issue not on the agenda for that date, nor plan for a future agenda. And I believe tonight is an open mic night. So will the clerk please call the first item of business?
We ask those of the general public coming forward to testify to please clearly state your name, spell your name, give your address, and sign in on the sign-in sheet lying on the podium. Testifiers may use either microphone, and there is a sign-in sheet by each microphone. We ask those individuals from city staff who are testifying to please state your name, title, and the department you work for. Just a reminder, due to the Christmas and New Year's holidays, the City Council will not meet on Monday, December 23rd and 30th. Our first item of business is our public hearing consent agenda, items 1 through 3.
And is there anyone that would like to speak on any of these items? Okay,
right.
Seeing none.
If not, we can vote on these items. Items 1A through F were introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
Oh, yes. On item 1F.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, City Attorney. On item 1F, which is the service agreement between the city and the Bryan College of Health Sciences, there was a typo as far as the date. It should actually be a 2-year term of January 1st, 2020 through December 31st of 2021. So I'd ask that a member of the council make that amendment to the resolution, and then we'll substitute the appropriate language in the
Madam
contract
Chair,
as well.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend item 1F to present the correct date for the term of the contract.
Second.
Okay, introduced by Shob, seconded by Washington. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
And now on,
Final vote on 1A through F. Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Items 2A and B were introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Washington, seconded by McGinnis. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Next then are public hearing liquor resolutions. Those giving testimony are asked to come forward and raise their right hand for the clerk to administer the oath. After the oath, witnesses shall state their names and addresses. I'll call items 4A and B together. They're the application of Mezcli Mexican Food for a Class I liquor license at 4715 West Adams Street, Suite 600, and the related manager application of Juan Romero. Would you raise your right hand, Juan?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do swear.
Thank you. Just state your name and address.
Juan G. Romero, 4715 West Adams Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68524.
Thank you for coming down. Tell us a little bit about your application and your restaurant.
Well, it's going on our third month that we open a Mexican restaurant over in Air Park. And so we are serving, Mexican dishes. The menu was done by my wife. And of course, we have another lady that's a chef cook in the kitchen. She's got like 25 years of experience. And, the reason we're applying for our liquor license so that we can boost our sales. So otherwise, right now, like I say, it's only our third month, so we're trying to, get more of the people in our neighborhood to come and join us in our business. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Romero?
I have one question. Mr. Romero, have you completed the alcohol manager's training?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item?
You can sit down.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, next I'll call 4C and D. They're the application of Tailwind LNK for a Class C liquor license at 2400 West Adams Street and the related manager application of Lisa Alexander. Is anyone here for Tailwind?
Come on down.
Hi, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do.
Thank you. Just state your name and address.
Lisa Alexander, 1910 North 54th Street, 68504.
Great.
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Could you speak closer to the microphone? There you go.
Better?
There you go.
Better, much better. Thank you very much for coming down. Tell us a little bit about your application and the business.
The business, we're trying to expand our sales to the end of the airport in the post-security. Right now, we're just in the pre-security, and we'd like to open it up in the post-security. I'm a new manager for Tailwinds. I was in North Carolina training last week, and I've just started my employment, and would love to achieve this license so that we can move forward with our business.
Terrific, thank you. Is there any other questions of Ms. Alexander? Is there anyone else in the room that would like to testify on this item?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, do you have a timeline on when you might be up and running and doing all kinds of fun things so I and the public?
We are up and running currently. However, we are not serving alcohol yet in the post-security, just in the pre-security. Yes, sir.
I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to testify on this item? Okay, thank you very much for coming down.
And thank you.
All right, next I'll call item 4E and F. It's the application of Noel's Liquor for a Class D liquor license at 840 North 48th Street and the related manager application. Hi, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do.
Thank you. Just state your name and address.
My name is Fasaha Tasfazayon. My address is 9344 Benzinger Drive, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68526.
Great.
Thank you very much for coming down, Mr. Tesfazian. Can you tell us a little bit about your business and your application?
This business is on 840 North 48th Street. It's a new location. And this is my second liquor store. Therefore, trying to give opportunity to new employees and make a living out of it.
Okay, Thank you very much. Are there any questions? No? Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Thank you very much for coming down. Next item.
Next is item 4G, application of the Kindler Hotel to expand its Class CK liquor license for the addition of a second floor area measuring approximately 100 feet by 142 feet at 216 North 11th Street.
Come on down.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
Yes.
Thank you. Just state your name and address.
Amy Turner, 216 North 11th Street.
Great. Thanks, Amy.
Okay, tell us about this expansion.
So as we're adding more rooms and construction to the hotel, we're just expanding our current liquor license to meet those rooms, to add onto the honor bars and things like that.
So this will be on the second floor area?
Correct. Yep.
Okay,
In the commercial club building. Mhm.
okay. And when will the commercial club be officially open, or is it open now?
Second floor's open.
Oh.
We're trying to be able to sell alcohol on that side.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions?
I have one question. So is the second floor just rooms, individual rooms, or is it also conference space and?
Yes, so there's our suites are on that side, and then we also have a boardroom over there and our offices as well, and the workout area.
Okay, thank you.
Terrific. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Thank you very much. Next item.
Next then is item 4H, manager application of Christopher Cochin for Omaha Exposition and Racing, doing business as Lincoln Race Course at 7055 South First Street. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do.
Thank you. Just state your name and address.
Chris Cochin, 7055 South First Street.
Thank you very much for coming down. Tell us a little bit about your application and Lincoln Race Course.
It was just a change in management. So just business as usual currently.
And can you refresh, how many times a year is it open for?
We just 2 live racing dates and then 363
Okay.
days a year.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Cochin? Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next item.
All right, next is item 4I, manager application of Cabe Harwood for craft axe throwing at 1821 N Street. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you verily believe it to be?
I do.
Thank you. Just state your name and address.
Yes, Cabe Harwood, 3715 Everett Street. I'm applying to be the new manager. Our current manager listed on the liquor license for Craft Axe will still be with us. She's taking on some new responsibilities. I will be the one overseeing alcohol orders as well as hiring of employees. We currently just have a beer license with a 2-drink limit while throwing. We're coming up on a year now, so I don't know if you guys have any questions for how things have been going, but
Well, how has business been going?
it's been going really well. We haven't-
Question.
Was that your question?
So what are your hours?
Yes, so we're open Wednesdays and Thursdays 4 to 9, Fridays and Saturdays noon to 11, and Sundays 2 to 8.
Do you foresee changing the 2-drink limit while you're throwing?
Our owners are interested in potentially at some point, either seeing to move that up as well as expanding to adding taps or other alcohol, but currently, no, we're not interested in moving that. It's a burden off of our backs, and it helps a lot for our instructors and everyone else working, and people seem to be very open and accepting of that, and very understandable as well, so.
Terrific. Any other questions? Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? Well, thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you.
All right. Next item.
Next then is item 4J, manager application of George Sherry for Hyatt Place, Lincoln Haymarket at 600 Key Street. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth as you really believe it to be?
I do.
Thanks. Just state your name.
George Sherry, 7240 Tallgrass Parkway in Lincoln.
Thank you very much for coming down. Tell us about the liquor license.
So the old manager left, and so I'm replacing him on the permit, so.
And have you already been working at Hyatt Place?
Yeah, so I started in November 1st, so
Okay,
a little over a month.
terrific. Is there any other questions?
Have you completed your training?
I have not. I'm going to do it next month in January, so.
All right. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Well, thank you very much for coming down.
Madam Chair, I move approval of items 4A through J.
Second.
Moved by Christensen, seconded by Washington. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next then, our public hearing resolutions, item 5A, amending the Lincoln Lancaster County Air Pollution Control Program regulations and standards to assure consistency with federal and state air quality regulations.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the City Council. My name is Scott Holmes. I manage the Environmental Health Division with the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department. What you have before you tonight are two fairly minor changes to our air regulations. These are some of the most complicated regulations that we have in the city. There are 20 pages of definitions, and the first change is one of those definitions. That definition will make us in sync with the state regulations, which we discovered a while back we were missing one word, and we've changed that. The second change is similar in that the way the language was written, the state removed some language because people were confusing how certain kinds of permits applied, and it basically led to a misunderstanding, and so they modified their language, and we're following that same approach by modifying that language. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I don't see any questions. It seems like pretty standard administrative
Pretty simple
task.
thing. Yes, it is.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming down. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Okay, we shall move on.
All right. Item 5B is accepting a report of new and pending claims against the city for November 16th through November 30th, 2019. Is there anyone here to testify on a claim against the city?
Okay. Anyone would like to testify? Okay, seeing none, we shall move on.
All right. We'll go on to item 5C, approving an agreement between the city on behalf of Aging Partners and Phillips Lifeline for monitoring services and equipment purchase for a 3-year term with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Randy Jones. I'm Director of Aging Partners with the City of Lincoln. This resolution is for a 3-year contract with the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year terms. Now, the reason why it comes before council is because it's a multi-year agreement. The contract is for monitoring services and equipment purchases for the Phillips Lifeline product that is basically an emergency response, personal emergency response system. The device is worn by seniors and detects falls. When a senior falls, it alerts a monitoring company, which is Phillips, who activates help. We currently have 302 of these devices in the hands of frail seniors. The program has been operating since 1989. Last year, there were 275 emergencies reported on the devices, and those resulted in 175 calls to 911. 132 of them were falls. This product indeed saves lives. There are no City of Lincoln funds used in this program. Funding comes from monitoring fees, Medicaid, and donations, and we currently hold an account balance that we use as a safety net. I'm asking for your support of this resolution, and I'm available for any answers to any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
If you had more resources, is there a need for more of these devices than you currently have?
I expect there to be a growing need, yes. Right now, the program itself is self-sufficient. It funds itself. So I think, as the need increases, we'll have the funds available.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can say it's a very important service for our seniors in our community.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Okay, we can vote.
All right. Item 5A is the amendment to the Air Pollution Control Program regulations, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Ward, seconded by Christensen. In any discussion? Please call the roll.
Washington?
Yes.
Bowers? Yes. Christensen?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. 5B is the report of claims against the city, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Ward, seconded by McGinnis. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, wasn't there someone we delayed for? Did anyone hear from them?
Yes, I reached out to that person. I just need to find out when when it will come up again, but their name was removed from this one.
It does not appear on this.
Correct.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, City Attorney. So when we remove someone from the claims report, depending on the timing, they usually won't show up on the next one because there isn't sufficient time to amend the resolution and give them sufficient notice. So she'll probably be up by the first time we have a claims report in January.
Perfect.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for asking,
Thank you,
too.
Mr. Bowers.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Washington?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 5C is the agreement with Phillips Lifeline, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Ward, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Washington?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Next, then, our public hearing ordinance's second reading. Item 6A is a real estate sales agreement between the city and Justin Johnson for the sale of city-owned property generally located at 915 South 24th Street.
Good evening, Dan Marvin, Director Urban Development. This, what you have before you is a sale of a home that we purchased back. There was a lien on it. We purchased it back, rehabbed it, and we are happy to be able to resell it. It's going to somebody who's gone through the NeighborWorks first-time home buyers, and think that it'll be a great new addition to the neighborhood. Happy to answer any questions.
So you got this back on a purchase or a lien?
So what happened is there was, we had a second on the house, and the previous owner was deceased, and there was a foreclosure on it. We purchased the house through the foreclosure process to protect our second mortgage on it, and then we rehabbed the building and put it back out for sale.
I think this is a good deal. You got somebody else in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Owning their own home and taking care of it.
Yes. I brought pictures too. I don't know if you want to see pictures.
Yes.
I've driven by and
See
seen
pictures?
I would like to see pictures.
All right.
Yeah, I went to
Before and
Zillow.
after?
Yeah, okay.
Oops, I probably
This
shouldn't
is a
have
good
said
thing.
that.
You like to brag about your department or.
Yes.
So here, this is kind of a before picture, and here's an after. After outside, here's a picture of, and then they did some rehab work, principally in the kitchen. And we did a little rehab work in the bathroom as well. So-
Kitchens and bathrooms sell houses.
Yeah, yeah, kitchen, yeah, that's true.
Very nice.
They need a pink bathtub?
Yeah, I had a pink
So-
bathroom, so.
No, we're real excited. Don't do a lot of these, but you'll probably see a couple of these a year.
How do we do more? How do we help you do more?
Well, we don't, I think most of the funding that we use is cooperative through NeighborWorks, and so we help assist in that. So those types of sales you don't typically see. But what we try to do is protect our interest on some of the CDBG and home funds. So again, these are government funds that we have liens on some properties, and in cases where they've gone through, unfortunately, in this case was somebody was deceased, then we try to protect our interest and rehab the property and then put it back out and keep it as an owner occupied.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Okay, thank you. We can move on.
All right, I'll call items 6B through F together, as they are all changes with personnel code. Amending the pay schedule for the employee group, prefixed by the letter W by creating the classification of Parks and Rec Facilities Operations Manager. Amending the pay schedule for the employee group, prefixed by the letter M, to change the title Systems Coordinator to Systems Development Manager, and a Microcomputer Network Support Coordinator to Network Infrastructure Manager. Amending pay schedule for the employee group, prefixed by the letter A, to change the pay range and title of Network Specialist 1 to Network Administrator 1. Amending the pay schedule for the employee group, prefixed by the letter A, to change the pay range and title of Network Specialist 2 to Network Administrator 2. And amending the pay schedule for the employee group, prefixed by the letter A, to change the pay range and title of Quality Assurance Coordinator to Public Health Accreditation Coordinator.
Good afternoon, Council. Doug McDaniel, Human Resources. The variety of ordinances in front of you, I'll go through them one by one and entertain any questions. The first one, 19-120. This is a new classification for Parks and Recreation, the Facilities and Operations Manager. Due to retirement, incumbents or other incumbents have been assuming duties, and Parks has moved forward with reorganizing a little bit, and will now be able to distribute the duties a little more equitably. People have been working in out-of-class status, assuming these duties due to, well, as I said, retirement. So that's 120. 19-121, we're redoing almost all of our classifications in the network area in information systems and information technology. Class title changes for systems coordinator going to systems development manager, microcomputer network support coordinator to network infrastructure manager, a little more contemporary titling, updating those class descriptions as well. 19-122, Network Specialist 1 to Network Administrator, moving that from an A10 to a C36, upgrading the pay range as well. This is a very competitive area in the network environment of IT, so we need to remain competitive in this area. The estimated cost of this actual change of changing the pay ranges is about $3,330. 19-123, Network Specialist 2 to Network Administrator 2, an A13 to an A16, again upgrading the pay range to maintain a competitive posture. The positions are actually vacant at the moment, so I can't actually project a cost implication, and they're vacated or turnover due to competitive natures. We lost some people. And the last one, 19-124, Quality Assurance Coordinator, moving to a new class of Public Health Accreditation Coordinator. This was at the request of the Health Department, where the duties of the Quality Assurance Coordinator had expanded across the continuum of the entire Health Department, taken on the accreditation duties and such. So this class is upgraded and updated to reflect some of the broadened duties, and moves it from an A13 to an A15. And the cost is approximated at $2,583. Again, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have for any of those classification changes.
Yes, Benny.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Daniels, you talked about on 6E that you lost some people, and you were, the
Right.
competitive nature of the work.
We had competitive, influences there, and we had some turnover. People elected to leave their positions and go elsewhere. And as we looked at that, we looked at the market data and felt that we needed to upgrade that.
Generally speaking, for employment in the city, are you able to fill most spots? We talk about a low employment rate in our city. Is that affecting your ability to keep staff?
Yes and no. So I'll answer that, that our retention is good in most areas. We find that in these high-tech positions, particularly in the information technology area, we are at risk sometimes, and we have to remain competitive, and so that's why we bring these forward. Sometimes we're not able to react to retain people until there's a vacancy. We try to mitigate that, but when we see it, we think our benefits and our total compensation package is good, but that doesn't preclude people from leaving for a variety of reasons. It could be direct and indirect compensation, or it could be lack of upward mobility. It could be any of those components. So, okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. McDaniel? Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on any of these items? Well, thank you very much. On to the next one.
Okay, next is item 6G, amending Chapter 5.41 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to salvaging, recycling, and composting operations to change recyclables drop-off operation to consumer recyclables collection site, to change the permit expiration date from July 31st to January 31st, and making it illegal to leave or deposit recyclables anywhere but in the provided containers, or to leave or deposit solid waste or items other than consumer recyclables.
Madam Chair and members of the council, my name is Scott Holmes. With me tonight is Donna Garden from Lincoln Transportation Utilities. The Health Department and LTU have worked together closely on this matter, and we're both presenting tonight. City-operated recyclable sites have been very successful in our community for many years. Unfortunately, they have also been a place where we've had quite a bit of illegal dumping. We had tried to address this over the past several years through a number of methods, including better signage, removing dumpsters where people could place garbage, hoping that they would no longer bring garbage there, and other methods. Unfortunately, the dumping has continued, and as we looked at our laws, we realized that our laws really did not give us any enforcement capability because most of these sites are on private property. So if there were a dumping of materials on a private property, the way our current codes work, we basically have to go to that private property owner and tell them, you have to clean up your mess. Obviously, we don't want to have to be telling people that are serving as our site hosts that they have to clean up messes that are left there. So the city has expended a lot of resources doing that, both through contractors and our own staff. As we looked at the codes, we worked with the law department to try to address that. And we have come up with some changes to LMC 541, which regulates salvage, composting, and recycling sites. And those changes include language which would make it illegal to dump materials at the sites that are not accepted at the sites. And Donna's going to talk about some of those materials. And then secondly, it would make it illegal for people to not put recyclables into the containers that are provided at the sites. That has been a problem in some cases where people will come with a pickup load of cardboard boxes that are not broken down, for example, shove them out of the back of the truck and leave them on the ground for someone else to break down and put in the containers. That's been problematic. So those changes are proposed not just for our city sites, but also for our private facilities that operate composting and recycling, and they also are subject to illegal dumping at times. And then in order to change the concept of these sites, historically have been called drop-offs, and Donna's going to talk more about this, but we are changing the name to consumer recyclable collection sites. And I'm going to ask Donna to speak to some of this.
All right. Good evening, council members. My name's Donna Garden. I'm with Lincoln Transportation Utilities, and I'd like to talk about our collection sites. I've got a slide up here on the screen that you can see, and we've had this program in our town for about 30 years or more, where folks can go and take their recyclables to a collection site. We've got 19 city sites. We have agreements. Most of these are on private property, so those agreements are with private property owners. And any enforcement that we could do in the past for any kind of dumping or anything that was there would have to be with that private property owner, which made it really an awkward situation. We also have collection that we do through contract for those sites, and as you would figure, if we have trucks, it's very automated. The trucks drive up, they pick up the bins, they dump it into the truck, and they drive away. However, if they're blocked by a number of other materials out there, that makes it very difficult and time-consuming, and certainly adds dollars to our contracts. We recycle about 7,000 tons per year, so there's a lot of material that goes through those sites. And unfortunately, we get a lot of other things too. we get things like this. We get tires, we get lots of garbage, we get biomedical waste at our recycle sites. We've even gotten a piano at our recycle site. We've gotten a hot tub at our recycle sites. But couches, TVs, I know I've had a hard time getting rid of one of those big TVs too, but it doesn't belong at a recycle site. We've got vacuum cleaners, appliances, things like that. Particularly mattresses, very hard to get rid of. Mystery liquids in containers that are obviously not recyclable. We even got concrete. Someone looks like they took part of their driveway and decided that maybe someone wanted some of that crushed concrete for something else. But the recycle site is not the place to send that. There's a certain list of materials that we can take at a recycle site, and we'd like to make it clear to everyone that those are the things that are accepted there. Our cardboard container that you see here on the right-hand side of this frame shows a large oil stain. Someone poured some oil into that cardboard container. None of that cardboard could be recycled. So this is a real by the numbers for 18-19 on what we actually had to pick up, and you can see there's a large amount of material here. I'm not going to go through all of these, but every time we had to stop and pick some of these things up, someone had to get out of a truck and do some work outside of their truck to do that. Takes extra time, takes extra collection cost in order to handle that. And the reason for the name change, we decided that we wanted to make it a collection site. That's a collection for recyclables, not a drop-off site for garbage. So that's where we are today, and that's what we're asking for you today to consider. And thank you.
Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there going to be any fees or fines for someone who leaves tires or other waste and garbage?
These are standard misdemeanor penalties that are part of all of our health codes. And so that would be up to a $500 fine, as well as potential for jail sentencing. I've not seen a jail sentence for probably 15 years on anyone, and that was for basically contempt of court by someone. So that's very unlikely, but fines in the $100 to $200 range have been pretty common for many of the misdemeanor penalties.
Yes, Benny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I use a drop-off site to recycle, and then my landlord does provide a bin, but it's always full, and it's mostly full of things that are not recyclable. I raise the lid, I look in it, and I say a few words I'm not going to repeat here. I close the lid down, I put the stuff in my vehicle, and I go to a drop-off site where I see more stuff that shouldn't be there. I'm very annoyed by this. How will this ordinance help straighten that out? How the enforcement part of it still confuses me. Are we going to start stationing people at the recycling centers to, recycling collections? Yeah.
For one thing, we do have a lot of activity at those sites.
Yes.
And you know that. You've been to them, both for collecting, our contractor that does the collecting, as well as the number of people that are there.
I do make a lot of friends there, yes.
And you're also eligible to be a bin buddy someday, too.
Explain this bin buddy when you finish, yes.
We have a program. It's on our website. You can take a look and volunteer. It's called the Bin Buddy Program. And we're asking folks that are passionate, like you are, about recycling and the drop-off sites.
I have a problem, yes.
To help out at the sites. They can spend some time there and help people that come into the site that may be new, that don't understand what can be recycled, or maybe are unable physically to break down a box themselves to put it in the bin. And just talk about the basic etiquette and how we can maximize the use of those drop-off sites. A little bit of time volunteered here and there. It's kind of like our Snow Angel program that we have here in town.
So each time I recycle, I still look at the list to make sure, where I've got that plastic container and I'm trying to find the triangle and the number on it. I see lots of pieces of plastic. I had a conversation with my barber. He recycles his snow shovel. I'm thinking, is that recyclable plastic? How do is there a plan to help me and other people understand what should be recycled and what shouldn't?
We do have a listing on our website also of the numbers that you mentioned. Any plastic that has that triangle with a number in it and the number is on our list is certainly recyclable. I have my doubt about the snow shovel.
I have my doubt about the snow shovel too. But he had a pair of clippers in his hand, so I didn't argue with him.
But I will tell you that's not what this ordinance is about. This ordinance is more about the more egregious types of materials that we find at the site that are obviously not recyclable. Miss throwing a piece of plastic that you think is recyclable is not what we're looking at. We're looking at these
A set
types
of
of
tires.
materials where we really, really have problems, and we know they're not recyclable materials.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, Tammy, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So could you talk a little bit more about how it's in line with Councilman Shope's question, how we can educate the public about the changes? Will there be signage at the sites? I also go to a recycling site, and I'm nervous too, right? Making sure that everything goes in the right place. But will there be, and I know I've read articles already about the things that are showing up there that are in the wrong place, as your slides pointed out. So will there be signs at the site that will remind us that this is illegal if you get carried away with your sofas, that type of thing?
We are planning to put signage there. Actually, there's lots of signage there now on what is allowed at the recyclable site, and we will add signage that it is a misdemeanor if we're leaving any of these additional types of things.
Great. Will there be other, like, and I'm sure you're doing like the social media marketing efforts just to educate the public a little bit more, perhaps?
We are in the third year of our recycle campaign that we have out there right now, and a
There you
big
go.
portion of that is Recycle Right on how to do that and the various materials that we
Nice.
accept at those sites.
Thank you.
Right.
From time to time, it seems we've had some issues with having the capacity to handle the demand. Where do we stand with that? Are we going to be adding sites, or are the sites we have sufficient?
Hopefully you haven't had any complaints lately. We did have a problem with our contractor terminated their contract this summer, kind of left us in the lurch a little bit. So we do have a new contractor that is servicing our sites, and as far as I know, we have not had complaints recently about that. We think we have the collection system moving pretty well. So if you have any additional complaints about that, please let us know.
Okay.
And we're always looking to make it more efficient, so that's something we'll be talking about as part of the next budget cycle.
Richard.
Yeah, thank you. Couple of questions, and one, you already talked about capacity. I think we all know that we go there and they're full, and we go to another one and they're full, so capacity and more drop-off sites, especially in southeast Lincoln, would be appreciative, and I think there's a lot of businesses that would like to work with you with those on those sites. You talk about consumer recyclable sites. Does this have anything to do, the change about having businesses drop off their materials on these sites?
We don't say anything about businesses in this particular legislation that we're talking about today. Obviously, we don't want large quantities at these sites. If you're a business that has recyclables, we hope that you would have your own service pick those up. So we've basically been, I think, talking about it in terms of if it's a small quantity, if it's a household quantity, it's not as necessarily a concern. But we'd really like businesses to use their own private service to pick up their recyclables at their business site.
The other reason that's in there, Richard, is that this code has defined consumer recyclables for many, many years as opposed to other kinds of recyclables. And so it also regulates salvage yards. And so our recyclable sites have always had a definition for what are consumer recyclables, and we felt that was important to include in the definition of the sites.
So a small business that may have a few boxes that they need to get rid of, it's still okay for them?
We just leave it as it is in the code. I'm not going to say one way or the other in terms of that, so.
Okay.
James.
I just had a quick question. Is there any sort of benefit to doing a misdemeanor over an infraction for being in violation of this?
I would pass that to law.
Yes.
Hi, Counsel. Rick Tass, Assistant City Attorney, City Attorney's Office. Currently, the code sets littering and illegal dumping under the criminal code as misdemeanors. So it's never been explored to make it into an infraction. That is a possibility. It's just currently the code has it as a misdemeanor.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a question for Scott and Donna. Are you going to enlist the public to help monitor? You know, should they see someone dumping something inappropriately, is there a number that they can call to report this type of behavior? Is that going to be included in your signage, or is it already in there?
I don't believe we have it included in the signage for this particular subject, but we do have a number you can call, and I don't have it with me right
Okay.
now, but it is on our website. And I think there's an article in the paper tonight about finding a wedding ring that we went out and helped find by calling that number. So if you see something, call us. We'll be happy to certainly get out to the site to take a look at it, whether it's a problem or whether it's you need help. So.
And any illegal dumping, we have promoted for years that they call the 6,000 number for non-emergency, both sheriff and police. So we've had that on billboards and posters for a couple of decades.
Okay, terrific.
It's exciting.
Yes, Benny, did you have another question? Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is there someone in the audience that would like to testify on this item?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for coming, and we'll go on to the next item.
All right, next is item 6H, amending section 8.32.080 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to special waste disposal permit required to include biohazard processing, treatment, and disposal facilities as special wastes under the miscellaneous category.
Madam Chair and members of the council, my name is Scott Holmes. I manage the Environmental Health Division with the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department.
Yay.
We have a very small change that we have asked to be brought forward. It's almost a cleanup item, but our large companies that haul medical waste from our hospitals and clinics in town, previously the way the permit applied, it classified them the same as a small clinic that might get rid of just a few biohazard containers a month, and they're hauling thousands of pounds a day. We asked that there be a change that those be categorized with hospitals, and that's what we're proposing tonight. So it's almost a cleanup type item, and we have met with both the companies that do this in town, and they understand the reasoning for that. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this item? Cleanup. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
The next is amending section 8.24.140 of the Lincoln Municipal Code regarding exceptions to the noise control ordinance.
Again, Scott Holmes from the Health Department. This again is a fairly minor change. This change is to allow emergency generators to operate when they need to without being a violation of the municipal code. There are several exceptions already in the code, and it seems obvious, but it was never in the code, that when an emergency generator has to operate, it's an emergency, and they should be able to operate without a violation of the code. And so that had come up to us recently through a business matter that we had dealt with, and we decided we needed to update the code for that matter. Yes.
So does it define the emergency that there is no power?
Basically, the emergency generator can only be used during that time other than for testing, yes. So it limits them, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Benny.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Holmes, I've seen lots of people who had at events or festivals or food trucks that have a generator out running. Is that meant to address some of these issues?
That is not the same thing. This is an industrial commercial generator that's set up. For example, this building has a generator for when power goes out so that certain aspects of the building can still operate, as do most larger buildings today. So that would be a completely different situation.
Most of those are okay, acceptable. The examples I gave is a gentleman who's running a food truck and he has an extension cord. The generator's usually off behind a tree or a fence someplace.
So if that truck was close to a residential property, the noise code would still apply and protect that property from being exposed to that noise. This is again just for emergency use generators. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Okay, we can move on.
That concludes our public hearing portion. We can move into the voting session. Ordinance's third reading. Item 7A is amending Chapter 8.50 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to the Lincoln Smoking Regulation Act by amending the code to prohibit vaping in places of employment and public places due to the health risks. Introduced by Shob.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Shob, seconded by Christensen. All right.
I'd like to propose an amendment that would delay implementation for 2 months for two purposes. One, we give the businesses affected a time to adapt their business model. Also, it would give them time to propose a licensure for their businesses in accordance with LB 149. We have copies here.
Seconded by McGinnis. Any discussion?
Roy?
Does Mr. Christensen wish to speak more
Yeah.
before we do questions?
I'll just take your questions and.
Roy, can you, I'm sorry, Councilman Christensen. I know, but we've had cookies together earlier today,
Yes.
so let's just be informal. Can you explain why you believe there's a need for 60 days
Well,
for businesses?
the first discussion Jeff Kirkpatrick and I had was, he mentioned 90 days, and I thought that was a little long. But this would allow these businesses to adapt their business model. 2 weeks to adapt a business model is pretty abrupt. And so this would allow them time to adapt. It would also give them a chance at their ability to come forward and propose a licensure for their businesses that the city could then institute. That licensure is available to them through LB 149. And sometimes businesses want to be licensed because it protects them from and separates them from competition that does not live up to the standards that these folks have.
I'll go.
Sure, Benny.
Madam Chair, thank you. Mr. Christensen, thank you. I'm still a little confused on the licensure, and that's a state law that's been passed down. Could we get some more information on that? Mr. Kirkpatrick, would you help us? Mr. Christian, you implied that some people like to, as if it wasn't mandatory, and that's where I'm a little fuzzy.
I don't think
on.
it's mandatory.
Jeff Kirkpatrick, City Attorney. When we talk about licensure, I think it'd be best to think of it in two different categories. One is state law now, which allows licensing by cities, does not require it. And when you look at the state statute, it talks about establishments selling tobacco products, whether that's cigarettes, tobacco, or vaping products. And so we have a number of vaping businesses in Lincoln right now. Some of them are licensed through the city clerk's office. Some of them are not. If the suggestion was that by that licensing, that would create an exemption that we could recognize through the city council, my suggestion to you would be that wouldn't work because it doesn't really do anything. There's no regulation. There's no real requirement other than you fill out a form with the city clerk's office. What Councilman Christensen had talked about was the potential for vaping businesses who believe they should be exempted to create some sort of a framework of regulation where they would say, we're different than a tobacco shop or a convenience store or a grocery store that sells vaping products. They'd have to do that if the city of Lincoln was going to, if you, for one, were going to pass such an exemption and we were going to be able to defend that exemption if it was challenged in court. And I would refer you to the legal memorandum that I did for you to look through. There were a couple of lawsuits dealing with Clean Air Act. One was on the state level, one was in Omaha with their Clean Air Act, had a number of exemptions. They were challenged, and the Supreme Court said, no, there's no real reason for this exemption. We find it to be unconstitutional special legislation. And so if the vaping businesses came to you and said, we're different, and you should exempt us, and you listened to them and you passed it, but there was no framework, there was no rationale, but you exempted vaping businesses. Then someone who owned, for example, a grocery store who sold vaping products could say, you're discriminating against me, that's special legislation, could sue the city for passing that special legislation. And my fear as a city attorney is that the city would lose that and the entire ordinance could be thrown out. So when we talked about the 60 days, that was to give those vaping businesses an opportunity to come forward with a framework and explain why they should be regulated and how they should be exempted. Is that possible? Frankly, I don't know. From the legal standpoint, we haven't worked on that. I don't understand the vaping business and understand why it would be different, why it would justify an exemption. But the 60 days would give them an opportunity to come forward, work with the law department, work with anybody on the city council that thought that it should be at least considered, and to see if we could come up with something.
So my intent here, first of all, I've said this to many of you, I am not a fan of vaping, but I am anti-tobacco. And so this, I think their business model is different perhaps because it offers a smoking cessation opportunity for people. The intent of this is to put the burden on those vaping businesses to create this framework and propose it. If they fail to do so, that's on them. And this would just go into effect.
Any other discussion? James?
So I just want to be clear, your opinion would be that if we were to pass this, then that we would then be open up to a lawsuit that we probably would not win.
When you say this, are you talking about
Trying to develop some sort of regulation or licensing through the city, that would open us up to a lawsuit.
No, what I'm saying is I don't know what the framework would be. I
Okay.
don't know what the business model would be. I don't know how they distinguish themselves from a tobacco hut that also sells vaping liquid and the cartridges and everything else that's involved. What's the difference between a vape shop and a tobacco hut that sells the same product? If they can distinguish themselves and say, we're different, we think the city of Lincoln should regulate us because we're providing a different sort of a service, then maybe they could craft that argument where an exemption would hold up. I haven't seen it. I don't know that it exists anyplace else in the country. So that's the challenge that they would have.
The intent of this delay of enforcement is just to give them the opportunity to come forward with some kind of thing that makes sense. Whether we pass that or not was not really part of this discussion right now, because we don't know what it might look like.
Go ahead. I would like a second bite when
You want a second bite? Go ahead.
Not everyone else has spoken yet. I think it would be fair to allow the other council people to address it before. Yeah.
Is there anyone else?
Madam
Tammy?
Chair,
Yeah.
I would just, in all due respect to Councilman Christensen, I'd like us to, I'm sorry, I cannot support your amendment to do this. I would like us not to consider that. I have read the city attorney's memo to us over the week, and I mentioned this to you earlier today, and to my colleagues several times, and if I've learned nothing over 3 decades of public service, it's to respect and appreciate and trust the advice of other public officials in the health department and certainly in the law department. So I will not be supporting the amendment and would like us to proceed with either further discussion or move to the ordinance. Thank you
Richard?
very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Quick question for Kirkpatrick. If we pass this without the extension of enforcement, can they still come forward at a later date and ask for a chance to have an exemption?
They can. Now, understand, I don't work for them. Our law department works for you, for members of the council.
Thank
And
you.
so if they came, if they came to you or to Councilman Christensen or anybody, and you came to me and said, work with them, give me an opinion as to whether this makes sense and you would feel comfortable defending it or you would suggest changes, we would be happy to work with you and see if we think that could work.
I'm asking.
So if they came to you 6 months from now and said, we think we've got a framework that might hold up, we would be happy to take a look at it at that point, yes.
Okay. Does it matter if it happens now or within the 6 months before it's enforced, or it really doesn't matter? 60 days.
Well, this is, I would suggest, and I don't understand their business model entirely, but this is a small change from the standpoint, it's not putting them out of business. Is it significant that their customers have to go outside to vape? Yes, it is to them, but they'll still be in business. In the time frame, if they want to work on something that can be considered, and again, I don't have an opinion on that because I don't know what they would do. The urgency really is in their court. If they want to make a change quickly and they think they can justify it, they can come to you or someone else on the council within the next month, and you can put it on the agenda. The advantage of working with the city of Lincoln as opposed to, say, the state of Nebraska is you can move forward much more quickly. And so you can be responsive in a shorter time frame.
Okay, so my question was, if we pass this without the amendment to delay the enforcement, they can still come to us at any time.
Exactly.
After that time, okay.
That's what I was said in a very, very long-winded way.
In my opinion.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? I would like to say that the focus should be on the fact that electronic cigarettes and exposure to secondhand aerosols are not harmless. We can't base public health and safety on unregulated products that are not FDA-approved smoking cessation devices. And this is no different than the Lincoln Smoking Regulation Act that has been successfully protecting our community, and adding electronic cigarettes to prevent exposure to secondhand aerosols will ensure we continue to protect our community as the public expects us to. So I will not support this amendment. Please call the roll.
Washington,
No.
Bowers,
No.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
No.
Schob,
Yes. Yes.
Ward.
No.
Motion lost, 3-4.
Now on the main motion.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 7B is amending Chapter 9.28, offenses by or against minors of the Lincoln Municipal Code by changing the age from 18 to 19 as it relates to the use of tobacco, introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Schob, seconded by McGinnis. Any discussion?
Nope, this is an easy one.
This is an easy one.
This is a good thing.
It's a good thing because we are in compliance with the changes that the state of Nebraska has recently made.
Yes.
Let's call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Item 7C, change of zone 19027, application of RKKKR LLC for a change from R3 to R4 residential on property generally located at Southwest 27th and West A Street, introduced by Schob.
So moved.
Second.
Introduced by Schob, seconded by Christensen. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
We have a motion to amend number 1 to accept a substitute ordinance.
Didn't get that.
We didn't
Did we
get that.
get that?
It's okay. We can.
Could we have legal come up and,
How about I move it and then we read it? So moved.
Second.
moved by Christensen, seconded by Schob.
The reason for the request is to more specifically state the legal description of the property subject to the change of zone.
Yes.
Okay.
Little cleanup.
Wait, so legal,
Thank you.
Mr. Kirkpatrick, it's just cleanup on the legal description?
Exactly. There was no change other than making sure we had the legal description correct.
This the one you want me to sign?
No.
I didn't think so.
Okay.
Just a second.
So
Well, that's a description.
we
isn't it?
have a motion and a second on the substitute amendment that
Who
clarifies.
seconded the
I
motion?
totally
I second.
understand now.
Thank you.
And I agree, having a clean description of the property
That's
is
very
always
important.
very important.
I've heard Teresa read one of these one time, and it was just.
It's.
We're good.
the
We're not
riveting.
going to make Teresa read it.
Thank you.
That's right. So let's call the roll on the substitute amendment.
Okay. Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
And I guess on the main motion,
Washington,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Raybold,
yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0. Resolutions on first reading are items 8A through F. Ordinances first reading are items 9A through O. Our pending list are items 10A and B. Anyone wishing to address the council on a matter not on this agenda and not planned to appear on a future agenda may do so at this time, since it is an open microphone evening.
Please come forward. And if there are more people, we can go ahead and line up down in front.
Hello, my name is Casey Ogle, and I'm a staff attorney at Nebraska Appleseed for Collective Impact Lincoln. Nebraska Appleseed is a nonprofit organization that fights for justice and opportunity for all Nebraskans. Collective Impact Lincoln, or CIL, is a partnership between Nebraska Appleseed, Civic Nebraska, and the South of Downtown Community Development Organization that focuses on 6 low-income Lincoln neighborhoods: Clinton, Belmont, University Place, Everett, Hartley, and Near South. We work with these residents to build community, develop neighborhood leaders, and take action on policy that is responsive to their needs. CIL began its work by reaching out to members of the community, by knocking on doors and asking residents about their concerns. Through our efforts, we have spoken with nearly 10,000 Lincolnites, and one of the issues that is continually brought to our attention is the need for quality, affordable housing in our city. This need is especially dire for Lincoln families that rent. According to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, housing is unaffordable for 46% of Lincolnites that rent at all income levels. Unaffordability is defined as having a cost burden, which means spending more than 30% of income on rent. In other words, over 21,000 Lincoln families are cost burdened by their renting situation. And the percentage of cost burdened Lincoln families increases when we consider those who are low income. Housing is unaffordable for 60% of those whose income is less than or equal to 80% of the area median income. Moreover, the need for improved housing conditions or adequate housing is also apparent. Current housing and urban development data also shows that more than 12,500 Lincoln renters live with housing adequacy issues, and we know anecdotally that this is a big issue for Lincolnites that rent. To that end, we advocated for the passage of Ordinance 1952 and celebrated when this council approved it in May of this year. But there is still more work to be done. We want to thank Mayor Gaylor Baird for studying this issue, and we look forward to the release of the Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan. CIL has participated in that process, and we have helped facilitate input for that plan from members of the community. We hope the plan that emerges is forward-thinking and provides innovative, specific policy solutions to our severe shortage of affordable housing. We've also begun to meet with some of you to discuss ideas that we hope to see in the Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan. And we look forward to meeting with the rest of you to have similar discussions. We ask the members of this council to be ready to implement any recommendations of the plan upon its release next year. And we ask you to put our city at the forefront of national housing reform. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Benny.
Yes, Ms. Ogles, thank you very much for coming forward. I'm sorry, you had some really good statistics early on, and I wasn't writing fast enough.
Sure.
Cost of burden percentage, do you remember that one earlier on?
Yes, 46% of all Lincolnites that rent at all income levels.
And there was another number right after that one, 36%.
More
I
than
think.
30%.
More than 30, that's what I missed.
Yeah, that's
their income is
Say
spent on
that, say that talking point again, please.
Yes, it's unaffordability is if you're spending more than 30% of your income on rent.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this at open mic?
Madam Chair?
No, this is your last chance for the decade.
Wow, that sounds so serious. But it's last chance for this year.
I would like to say, remember the golden rule, and I move for adjournment.
Second.
Seconded by McGinnis. I just want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone, and please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes,
Schob,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7-0.
we are adjourned.
Just want to remind